probably not. It's really a story about God's patience, God's faithfulness, how God responds when people mess things up. All right, so this is a series of narratives. In each of these stages, you've got, it starts with this profoundly dysfunctional family system. You've already gone over that. Then, like 400 plus years down in Egypt, it's supposed to be in the land. They're down in Egypt. And then today we'll talk about the wilderness. Next week about this really violent episode of occupying the land. And then they get their act together to form a monarchy. Some people talk about this as the golden age in history. I don't see any golden age there. This is just another kind of mess. And the issue is not so much the mess, but how does God respond? Is God patient, faithful, loving, and present when we mess things up? That's the central question, I think, of both the Old and the New Testaments. When things are really, really messed up, where's God and what is God doing? Where's God when things get messy? That makes it a very, if that is, I believe, true, the central question raised by the First Testament, where's God and what is He doing when people mess things up? That, I think, makes it a very practical piece for us, because we all arrive at the text carrying with us all our own mess. We know the stuff we bring with us when we come to the text. And it's reassuring to know that this has been going on for a long time. And the theme we'll look at today is actually a theme that, today we'll be looking at Exodus mostly 20 to 40, which is the wilderness experience. And then next week we'll talk about the most violent and bloody episodes in the Old Testament in Joshua Judges. Both of these sections are, if you have ever done that sort of reading the Bible through in a year kind of thing, both of these sections are places where people tend to bail out. The wilderness narrative, because it just gets really boring in there. Pastors will talk about that, particularly about the tabernacle, like 10, 12 chapters about the details of the tabernacle. It's like, I don't know, it's about as exciting as sitting down and trying to read through the Presbyterian Book of Order. It's just deadly dull, Might be really important, but it's deadly dull. And Joshua Judges, because it makes us really anxious. All this violence. So we'll talk about that next week. Now, the question, the issue of where is God when it's messy is not brought up in our text today for the first time. It's been going over many, many times. It starts in Genesis 1, the very first two verses. At the very, very beginning, the central theme of the First Testament is made clear. In the beginning, that's before the Trump era, that's before European occupation of North America, before Western civilization, before the early church, before Paul, before the prophets, before Abraham. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. And then there's a commentary about God's work. There's no commentary about the heavens, but there's a commentary about the earth. It's what? It's formless and void. And what's the third thing it says? Formless, void, darkness. If this were a Yelp review, you would not go to that restaurant. Formless, void, and dark. It's a very, very critical comment about God's work at that stage. An astonishing thing at the very beginning of a sacred text. In fact, if you look at the creation narratives from the Middle East, it's extremely rare that they start. They usually start with Genesis, and I think most Christians would expect Genesis to start with God created everything and it's awesome. Spend more time outside, But this begins with a pretty critical comment. The only thing in favor of creation at the very beginning is where's God and what is God doing? Because after the formless, void, darkness, it says the Spirit of God is hovering over the surface of the deep. Where's God? God's very close. God's very patient close, very attentively close, waiting for the right time to take the next step. So where is God when things are really messy, formless, void, dark? God's right there. Hasn't missed a step. God's very, very close. Things are messy. God's really close. The Adam and Eve narrative picks us up. Adam and Eve make a big mess, right? They make an enormous cosmic mess. Where is God and what is God doing? Well, there's consequences to the fall, as we call it. I don't really trips or anything, but it's what we call it. And so Adam and Eve are out east of Eden now, out in the desert. And the very last sentence of the Adam and Eve narrative, before the attention turns to the next generation, the very last thing is a short one-sentence speech that Eve makes on the occasion of the birth of her first son. She's out east of Eden, giving birth. And she says, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a son. Where is God when things get really messy? Is God, when the gates of Eden closed, clanged and locked shut, is God off in a castle inside Eden where his perfection and righteousness can be guaranteed? No, God is out east of Eden with the people he loves, being a midwife for Eve on the occasion of the birth of her first son. When things get messy, where is God? God's very close to the people he loves. Abraham. In my mind, is kind of the Mr. Bean of the Old Testament. He gets everything wrong. God shows up out of nowhere to Abraham and he says, I'm going to give you stuff. This was unheard of in Abraham's world. Abraham didn't go to Sunday school as a kid, didn't go to church, right? He's living in a very religious culture. There's lots of choices of deities to serve. And in all cases, the available deities to serve are deities that come to you and say, you need to give to me. Yahweh comes to Abraham and says, I'm going to give you stuff. I'm going to give you land. I'm going to give you kids like the sand of the sea. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to be a blessing to all the peoples of the world. You'll be my agents for blessing, my priests to bless the whole world. Abraham, to his credit, says, okay, gets a U-Haul truck, gets the stuff all together, and heads off to the land. And but Abraham does not stay in the land. Where does he go? He goes to Egypt. That's not where he's supposed to go. He's supposed to be in the land. When he gets to Egypt, Pharaoh thinks his wife Sarah is pretty hot. He wants her. He says, can I have her? And Abraham says, okay. And by the time he's done in Egypt, is he being a blessing to the Egyptians? No, he's a curse to them. They desperately want to kick him out of the land because he's a curse. So he's supposed to be in the land, having lots of kids, and being a blessing. Son, doing whatever it takes so that his neighbors say, it's just really a blessing we have you in the neighborhood. You're good with that here. None of that's going on. He gets it all wrong. It's a big mess. Where is God and what is God doing? God's going to get him back to the land. So he winds up back in the land. He's not having lots of kids yet. Abraham and Sarah have their first kid very late in life. Sometimes just as it'd be useful exercise to go to that genealogical section in Genesis where it talks about Abraham's family and make a family tree of it. You'll see that all of his brothers, all of his uncles, every male in that family system has like 10 or 12 kids. And Abraham's got one. So it's not obvious that he's making progress in having lots of kids. This may be related to the fact that he has to have it at least twice in the text. A simple reading of the text would suggest that he gave away Sarah twice to other people when he felt in danger. That's not to explain to you when he asked you to have lots of kids, but giving your away a wife is not part of that process. You want to have lots of kids. So Abraham makes a big mess, but God is still faithful to his promises. God's still at work. He's going to do the stuff that needs to be done. A little bit later, a couple generations later, they wind up back down in Egypt. Joseph went down first because his brothers sold him into slavery. They go down to Egypt. He becomes attached to the Pharaoh's household because he can interpret dreams in part, and becomes a good manager. And so the arrival of the rest of the family in Egypt probably was fairly smooth. Pharaoh gave them their own land to occupy down the Nile Delta, which is a pretty fertile land. But they're still there for 400 years, more like 450 years, and the conditions deteriorate over time pretty significantly. By the end, they're throwing Jewish babies in the Nile River to drown them because they had been getting one part of the promise done. They had been having kids. They became a demographic. Pharaoh says these people are a demographic threat. There's so many of these people. We got to do something. It's not that they're going to threaten his next election as a Democratic. It's not a democratic arrangement, but the Pharaoh's afraid that if somebody else attacks Egypt, he can't trust these people. They have a dual loyalty. That's where the meaning of dual loyalty starts. Came up just in the last month or so as an anti-Semitic kind of meaning. Common among white supremacists. Jews can't be trusted because they have a dual loyalty. Long history there. So by the end, Pharaoh's solution to not being able to trust his people is to make them work harder and to kill their children. This is like not a good recipe for having good relationships with an ethnic minority in your country. I'm not going to draw the obvious parallels here today, but making them work harder and killing their children is not a good way to be endeared to your population. Okay, but the last time you talked about coming, and Cheryl, I wasn't able to be here for that, but I'm sure she did a good job of coming out of Egypt. Says that all these miracles, just miracles. There's all kinds of questions around that. I'm not going to go back to that. But they managed to get out of Egypt, and it's important to remember that two things. One, miracles, I think, have a half-life of about 2 weeks. They do. They sort of fade in our consciousness over time. It's at the time it was just overwhelming, and then 2 weeks later they're out in the desert and they're saying, "Did you bring us out here to kill us, to starve us to death? And did you bring us out here so that we, die without water? There's no water." Lots of complaints. Now, part of that is the fact that a lot of the people who left Egypt during the Exodus were probably in withdrawal at that time. It's not in the biblical text, but we know from other sources that the way slave owners would pay their slaves was with beer. Wouldn't be uncommon to give 2 to 3 gallons of beer a day, because beer was a way to preserve the caloric value of foods. They didn't have refrigerators, didn't have canned goods, right? So you ferment stuff to hold on to the value. This is very much like colonial America, where whiskey was a currency. I ran across once a contract for hire for a pastor in Pennsylvania in the 1860s, I think. He was to give them the use of the parsonage, the use of a horse, $300 a year, and 24 gallons of whiskey. Now, the presumption was not that he was going to drink all that whiskey, although myself, I have no doubt that there were some pastors who did. But the premise was, anything else you need, you can barter with whiskey. So you can get anything else you want to have in whiskey. America, alcohol consumption was such a deeply embedded part of American culture that it was like money, it was like currency. Okay, I'm ranting now, I need to do that. So a significant proportion of the population leaving Egypt there's probably a withdrawal at the time. And so typical symptoms of alcohol withdrawal, once you're really well adapted to it, is restlessness, irritability, discontent. And that's the kind of things the text says that these people were experiencing. Their complaints, did you bring us out here to kill us, that kind of stuff. So you have people, a lot of people withdraw, a lot of people, they've been living for 400 years in a pretty fertile river valley. And now they're out being a nomadic tribe in the desert. They have no skills for that. They don't know how to do that. That takes a whole different set of skills. They've been making bricks for hundreds of years. I made bricks, my father made bricks, my grandfather made great-grandfather made bricks. That's what we know how to do. You can't make bricks out of sand, you gotta have mud from the Nile. Right? So they're out there without a way to really navigate. The only person who had some skills for living as a nomad was Moses. Moses, remember, early in life, managed to escape the killing of Jewish children. Interesting story. As a young adult, kills an Egyptian, knows he's doomed, escapes to the Midianites, which were a nomadic tribe living in the wilderness, to which he takes all the Israelites. So he's been out there. He knows his territory, what you have to do to survive. Okay. Let's look at just an outline of, Exodus 19:40, I think, comes in two parts. The first is about the covenant. Covenant is about the relationship, what kind of relationships God want to have with his people. The second part has to do with the tabernacle. The tabernacle is a fancy tent that's portable. It has all these things in it. How many of you here made a scale model of the tabernacle using only popsicle sticks and elder's glue as a child? Anybody do that? Well, you're all healthier people to do it. Very dark, pointed out person. But the tabernacle is about presence. This is how you know God's with us. It's the Emmanuel theme, God with us. If you look back prior to this section in Exodus, God's presence was intermittent. He shows up and takes walks through the garden in the cool of the evening with Adam. Doesn't tell us what he does the rest of the day, but he shows up in the evening for a stroll. He shows up to midwife Eve's first child. He shows up to Abraham, gives him a bunch of instructions, and Abraham's just to be kind of on his own to take care of that stuff. Makes a big mess of it. And I think it's pretty reasonable to expect that if you've been a slave for, say, 450 years, that your sensibility about God's presence might be raised a lot of questions in your mind. Where have you been? Where have you been? How come you didn't hear us when they were killing our babies? So the matter of presence, Moses, God shows up in a burning bush, but you don't get a burning bush every day. So the people were eager to have some sort of tangible evidence that God was present with them. And that's what the tabernacle is all about. It's about God's presence. Just a little bit about covenant, and then we'll talk about tabernacle. This is what God says to Moses about a covenant. You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings, obviously a metaphor, or literal, only Tolkien. How I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. That, I think, is the key phrase. What is it in terms of how God sees what's going on here? Did God bring you out of the desert? I brought him out because God wants us to be with him. That's what we come out of Egypt for, to be with God. It's a very personal way to talk about this. It's not just a relocation. Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. This is a particularly important point to emphasize that it's not that God's people get to be God's people because they're special in some way. And they're special in the sense that they are to mediate God's love and God's grace to the rest of the world. It's not like, this is not a covenant for just a tribal deity. All the earth is mine. God's not narrowly focused on this particular tribe. God's going to use this tribe to effectuate his plan to bless the whole world. That's what God wants. A kingdom of priests. I think most of the time we think priests as kind of special people that are particularly close to God. That's not the sensibility here. The sensibility here is that priests have a function. They're to take the wisdom or whatever God has to say, whatever blessings God has to distribute, and be distributors of grace rather than distributors of shame, for example. That's what God's people should be about. Now, a quick list of stuff I'm not going to talk about. After that sort of general framing of what having a relationship with God is about, you get the Ten Commandments. After the Ten Commandments, you get some kind of first thing, the next thing is some constraints on slavery. They've been slaves for 450 years, and it's really important for them to say, that is not okay. We're not going to do that. There's going to be time limits set on slavery. Later on, there's additional constraints. But that's important. Then there's personal injury rules. If you're a slave and your master breaks your leg, tough luck. There's no health insurance, there's no recourse. We're going to have some rule of law start. Property rights, miscellaneous laws, Sabbath keeping, the importance of rest is here at the very beginning of this covenant. Annual feasts, and then there's an expression of God's intentions about conquest of the Holy Land. I'll come back to that next week, and we'll talk about that. There's a bunch of miscellaneous laws, if you want to call them that. The only one that I'm going to mention is I couldn't pass it up. It's has to do with how you treat stranger. So there's someone in your land who doesn't belong to your tribe, they're not like you. What are you supposed to do? You shall not oppress a stranger. Lots of different translations of this. Let me read Deuteronomy's translation. You shall not take the children of an undocumented person away from them and put them in cages. That is not okay with God. It's an abomination. Okay, end of rant.
Did God expect too much from these people? Because you were saying that they were going to follow all these different things, and they were slaves and so on. That you're going to have some type of rebellion. You would think.
Yeah.
That even if they're just setting up the laws and all that. I mean,
yeah.
So did God expect that everybody was going to be followed everything to the book?
Yeah.
Or did He expect that some people were going to not follow or whatever it was, and then He made it worse, leaving them in the wilderness all these different years, and then because they broke the calf thing.
Well, it's actually a perfect segue to what I want to talk about next, because they get all these rules and they make a mess, just as you would expect from everything we read up to this point. They make a mess. But before they make a mess, they say, okay, all that the Lord has spoken we will do, and we will be obedient. And so, great. Everything's great now. But what happens is that takes us up to Exodus 25, and then 25 to 31 is all about the tabernacle. There's like Exodus 25-31 is detailed architectural design elements. What kind of cloth to use for the priest's garments, what kind of stuff to use to make the lamp holder, the candle holders. I mean, to a modern reader, it just feels boring. Like, what is this sacred text? Did we really know that text? But Yahweh makes it clear, let them construct a sanctuary for me that I might dwell among them. That's the key here about the tabernacle. They have not had a place to meet with God through their entire history. Every once in a while, when Abraham first gets to the land, he piles up a bunch of rocks, calls it an altar, and does a sacrifice. But it's not a place that people come on a regular basis to do business with God, to talk to God, to get answers to questions about how to live. But now they will have this place. Shortly after that 5 chapters of instructions, you get this narrative section, a short narrative section about the golden calf. Moses has gone up back to the top of the mountain. There's clouds and thunder and earthquake kind of stuff. It's very dramatic. He's up there and people say, hey, I've got a short attention span problem. Where's this guy? We don't know what he's doing. Come make us a God who will go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what he's supposed to be becoming. So they collect a bunch of gold. Aaron organizes a gold collection. They melt it down. They make a golden calf. These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt. That's what they say. We found God. It's a God of our own making. I mean, they had gotten specific instructions about not having idols just before this. And then, boom, first thing that they do, they make an idol. God's up on the mountain with Moses. God's not happy. Moses is not happy. There's this really interesting exchange between God and Moses about whether God's willing to be with them anymore. Because out of the chute, they're just making a mess. And Moses' arguments are, this is your people, the ones you chose. And this is my suspicion. We don't have a transcript of this exchange, even a redacted one. We have my guess, he says, they've made messes before, and you've always come close. Yeah.
Do you think God had too many rules and regulations, and it was too much for the people? That maybe if he would have maybe toned it down.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Just make it, tone it down to make it simple in the beginning, and then build it up. And these people, that's why why they did this, because it was too much for them. It was just, they just couldn't handle the rules and regulations because they were in slavery.
A couple points about that. One is the Old Testament text. It looks like God gave this complete hundreds of pages of stuff to go home and memorize by next Sunday. But that actually developed over a very long period of time. And to be fair, they had been slaves for 450 years. And so all these sort of structures, organizing structures of life, are stuff that was provided for them externally. They're not accustomed to making decisions on their own, so they needed a lot of structure. And I think even if God sort of went slower with this, I think they would have gotten, they still would have made a mess. Maybe different, but it would have been. I don't see any hint here that it could have been the beginning of the Golden Age. This is about the end of Moses' conversation with God, where God says to Moses, get up to the land. I'm going to send an angel before you to drive out the people that are there now. Go to a land flowing with milk and honey. For I will not go up in your midst. God decides not to go. And that precipitates the argument with Moses, in which Moses basically wins that conversation. Following this is another 4 chapters about details of the tabernacle. So you have this narrative of failure surrounded on both sides with this reminder that God is going to be with his people. And that's the kind of the bottom line. Throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the sons of Israel would set out. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out until the day when it was taken up. For throughout all their journeys, the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and there was fire in it by night in the sight of all the house of Israel. So they did get this really concrete expression of God's desire to be with his people. Even in the wilderness, even after their failing failure. And I think the structure of the text is there to emphasize that. Their failure is sandwiched between this emphasis on the tabernacle, God with us, Emmanuel. Same thing that's picked up in the New Testament, as their failures mounted up over time. And the same thing applies to us today, when we make messes. Where's God? What is God doing? God says closest to He, hovering over the surface of the waters, waiting patiently for the right time to make the next step. Even when we screw up. It's not what we expect when we screw up, right? We expect punishment, judgment, shame. The last thing we expect is that God will be patiently waiting because He loves us so much. Let's sing hymn number 254. Usually when it starts to get sermonic, it's definitely time to stop. So we will stop there. I didn't leave much time for questions. Next time, Joshua Judges. Mostly I talk about violence. Bloody violence episode in history. It's one of the reasons people resist the Old Testament. I will share with you my thoughts about the violence in the Old Testament and respond to that. Invite your friends and neighbors to be very cheerful. Thank you. Go in peace.
Thank you. See you all next week, and I'll close this in prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you again for your word and for those who are leading us through the Old Testament. We pray that we would continue to think about your presence in our lives, to be aware of your presence in our lives in the way that you walk alongside us each day. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Explored in one area.